And despite the conditions outside, I've found that the sun is always shining on Fort Lee, and particularly today. I extend a warm welcome to all those in attendance, especially Governor and Mrs. McDonnell, Attorney General Cuccinelli, Secretary Suit, Senator Stosh, Delegate Cox, Commissioner Galante, members of the Virginia General Assembly, and other dignitaries in the audience. It is indeed wonderful to have every one of you here today. This is truly a special occasion for the military, both active and retired, and their families. And on this special occasion, the Fort Lee community is extremely pleased to host this bill signing ceremony. It is not every day that we are given the opportunity to witness the legislative process and to see legislation signed into law. And today, if the governor's hand doesn't give out, over 30 bills will be signed into law. So it is indeed my distinct privilege to introduce the individual who will sign these bills, the premier leader of the Commonwealth, the 71st Governor of Virginia, the Honorable Bob McDonnell.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, General Hodge, for your great leadership here. Welcome to Virginia. We're glad to have you back. Only your 7th tour in Virginia. We're honored to have you and First Lady Michelle of the Post here. And we're honored to be back on this marvelous post. This is incredible what's happening here. During the 30 years or so that I've been around the military, I've not seen a ramp up in any military base in this state or beyond like we've seen here. I got a little Black Hawk tour with your predecessor about 6 months ago, and it surely is astounding. And getting to the point that by the time you're fully staffed up and the BRAC order is implemented here this September, that about 38% of all of the young men and women that become soldiers are going to come through Fort Lee, Virginia. This is just a terrific source of pride for us, and we're real excited. It's a great day for the region as well. We just left the groundbreaking for the Commonwealth Center for Advanced Manufacturing, the big partnership with Rolls-Royce and our universities, a number of other big partners, defense contractors that are going to be planting the seeds now for a marvelous research and development plan to be able to do things to support the aerospace industry and to support our troops on the ground. So great day for this region of Virginia, and I'm honored to be here with so many leaders. Good to have Colonel Sutherland here. Thank you, Colonel, for coming, representing DOD, and Admiral Mullen. They've been great partners with us here in Virginia, and delighted to have you down here. Our Adjutant General of the Army National Guard, General Daniel Long, is here and is just doing a superb job. The National Guard has had nearly 12,000 troops deployed since the bombing of the USS Cole. Many of our soldiers had many deployments, multiple deployments already. Not to mention many being deployed to clean up snow last year, and now helping our civilian population, our 8 million folks in times of need with civilian emergencies. We also have Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. He's not a brigadier general. He's not a major general. He's just an attorney general. So, but he's doing a great job, and you'll be hearing from him a little bit later on. We're also glad to have a couple members of my cabinet here. Secretary of Administration Lisa Hicks Thomas, and soon-to-be Secretary of Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs Terry Suit. That's actually one of the bills that we will sign to elevate this to a cabinet-level position to focus on the veterans here in Virginia. And you'll also be hearing later on from our Commissioner of Veterans Services, a great American hero and a great leader, Commissioner Paul Galante. Later I'll be introducing some of our legislators. There are many of them here that led the way on these veterans legislation this year. They're all seated over there, and I'm so delighted that so many of them were able to make it today. But you'll be hearing from Delegate Majority Leader Kirk Cox and Senator Walter Stosh in a short period of time. But I know with us today we've got Delegates Anderson, Cosgrove, and Merricks, and then Delegate Ingram, who represents this part of Virginia. as well as Senators Martin, Senator Miller, Senator Ruff, Senator Bogle, and I hope their presence here today. It's a very large contingent from literally all over the state, and I hope this is a good sign and testament to all of you about how important we consider this issue of protecting and promoting our brave men and women in uniform. I also have with me the person I think who is the greatest champion for our military in Virginia, and that's my wife, the First Lady, Maureen McDonnell. She is the daughter of a Marine sergeant who served on Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and Saipan. She's the wife of a retired Army officer. That would be me. And she's the mother of an Army lieutenant who serves as a platoon leader in Iraq. And so she really is passionate about doing everything we can to support the men and women in uniform. She's made that part of one of her top initiatives. She has initiated an activity or a plan for activities to support veterans on the 11th of every month in commemoration of 9/11. She's out there at a USO. We're doing something to help support our veterans. And Colonel Sutherland, in partnership with Admiral Mullen and some of the work that he's advocating, we have just begun to launch a website called SOS, Serve Our Service Members, where we can match up the needs of the families of those who are deployed with those who are willing to volunteer and help their fellow Virginians who have family members deployed. So I'm really grateful for the First Lady's great leadership in that area. Last but most important is thanks to all you veterans, you brave men and women in uniform, you retired veterans, people from the Purple Heart, from MOA, from the other veterans organizations that are here, the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, all of you that have worn the uniform and served your country with honor and gallantry. I want to salute you because we know that you have sacrificed greatly, giving your time and your talent, and some that are not here, their very lives for the cause of freedom. And that's why this is so very important that we're here today to honor you as we sign these 23 pieces of legislation. I know from my own experience in the military that it has been the blood, sweat, and the tears of American men and women that have ushered in freedom for our people for 235 years in Virginia. We do a lot of work in the General Assembly to put forth laws that we think are good and fair and just for our people. But if we don't have brave men and women in uniform that are willing to sacrifice and fight and train and be deployed and be away from their families, that are willing to preserve those civil liberties, to fight for our way of life, then what we do in Richmond and Washington are just idle words on parchment. They have no meaning without a trained and dedicated military to support those. My favorite president is George Washington, and he, of course, was a great general himself before he became the first president of the United States. And he said something very important in his first inaugural address. He said, "The willingness with which our young people are willing to fight in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional as to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." And I think the General and President were absolutely right, that if we don't take care of men and women in uniform today, it will be harder to recruit the best and brightest in future to train, serve in the military, and fight in the wars of tomorrow. And I think it's pretty obvious from what we see in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Egypt and any number of hot spots in the world that the need for our military to be engaged and defend our national interest and stand up for the cause of freedom will endure for a very, very long time. And so what we do today is important. I have a rather modest goal of making Virginia the most veteran-friendly state in America, which we are well on our way towards doing. We've accomplished a lot working together. 4 years ago, we started in the Attorney General's office a wall of honor to do what we failed to do after the Vietnam War, and that is to immediately honor the sacrifices of our brave Virginians who died in the cause of freedom. We have well over 200 now since the bombing of the Cole. And now perpetually displayed in the Attorney General's office are the faces, the names, and the story of the sacrifice of those men and women who have died from Virginia. And I appreciate Attorney General Cuccinelli continuing that good work down there at the office. We live in a state with 814,000 veterans, more than any other state, and it's a source of great pride. We're home to the Pentagon. We're home to the greatest naval base in the world. We're home to Langley Air Force Base and many other strategic spots for both civilian and military members to do what they do. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to find ways to support them. Last year, we passed a number of bills, including a real estate tax relief bill for disabled veterans. We waived administrative fees for permits and applications for qualified veterans and small business startups. We provided college admission assistance for veterans and a number of other things that we thought would help to move the ball forward. This year, I'm glad to say, it was another superb year in being able to support our veterans with 23 new pieces of legislation that we will sign ceremoniously here in just a minute. Among those efforts are a bill to waive the one-year residency requirement that's needed for veterans to qualify for in-state tuition. So after July 1st, they will be immediately able to apply and get in-state tuition for the family members of those and the members themselves to be able to get in-state tuition in Virginia, which I might remind you is quite a deal, and may get cheaper next year at VCU if they win the national championship on Monday night. We also have a bill that's going to extend the expiration date of certain licenses or registration that are held by spouses of service members when they're stationed overseas to cut down on the bureaucracy for relicensing. We have a bill that's going to allow the Department of Human Resource Management, Secretary Hicks Thomas is here and working on this already, to offer voluntary TRICARE supplemental coverage for state employees who are veterans of the armed forces. And we're already working on that process to have it up and running by this summer. We're going to provide every veteran at least one free copy of their vital records, which you're going to need for various causes in determining eligibility for state or federal veterans benefits. We're also signing a bill to provide an exemption to the Certificate of Public Need, which is something required before you can build medical facilities, and we're going to exempt that for all future Veterans Care Centers in the state. And finally, as I mentioned, Secretary, we're creating a new Secretary of Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security. Secretary Suit will fill, and she's already in the assistant to the governor position, but we're elevating that to a cabinet level position so that we can put first and foremost the needs and the wants and the concerns of our veterans at the cabinet level. So I'm just thrilled to be here. There's very few things I enjoy more than doing the work that supports our veterans that do the hard work of freedom. And I think Virginia will move yet another step towards that goal of being the most veteran-friendly state in the country by the signatures today and by the enactment dates on July 1st. So I appreciate you being here. And with that, I want to introduce some of the other speakers who have been a part of this effort to achieve these goals and to support our men and women in uniform. I'd like to introduce to you the Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, who has been a long-standing and very strong supporter of the United States military. He represented the Senate in the Loudoun district that had a Fairfax district that had a number of active duty and retired members. He has been very active in supporting legislation this year and last for veterans legislation. He carried some as a senator. He's continued to work hard to perpetuate that wall of honor to memorialize the sacrifices of our men and women. So I'm introduced to you the Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you all for joining us today. Virginia is fortunate to have a governor like Bob McDonnell, who's a veteran himself and understands the needs and the importance of taking care of our men and women in uniform and who were in uniform and are now veterans. People who made the sacrifices and undertook the service to protect our freedom. And thank you, General Hodge, for hosting us today. It is a pleasure to be with the entire Fort Lee community and quite an honor as well. And thank you for your service, as well as the men and women who work for you, so many of whom are here today. so pleased to see all of you and so grateful. And of course, we appreciate the service of all our military members and our Guard, General Long, glad you're here as well, and our veterans. And that is a great motivator for all of us in Virginia government to get right and put through a lot of the legislation you'll see signed here today. As I travel around the Commonwealth and speak to various community organizations, I frequently call upon the gathered to reflect on something that we Americans can too easily take for granted, and that's our liberty, our freedom. Before I arrive on the scene, meeting organizers have gotten a room, they've gathered food sometimes, and maybe partnered with to print up brochures. It depends on what we're doing, so on. But one thing they don't have to do, they don't have to go get a permit from the local police for us to get together and gather, because we're free people. They don't have to get permission from the local government. We can do it on our own because of the sacrifices, including giving their very lives to over 1 million Americans over our history, that you all make every day, and we are very appreciative of it. And that's because our Bill of Rights recognizes our freedom of association, the freedom to gather. Because for over 235 years, this nation's approaching 235 years old, but there were military men and women, at that time men, fighting before even then for our freedom and our rights. Brave men and women have stood up to aggression throughout our history to preserve our freedom and to preserve our liberty. Our well-established tradition of freedom is the envy of the world, and it is still the envy of the world. Thanks to the sacrifice of veterans and their families, we speak, assemble, and worship as we choose. I'm pleased with the progress that we made on behalf of our veterans and active duty military members during this 2011 General Assembly session. One of my main campaign platforms was improving the veteran friendliness of the Office of the Attorney General. So I came in with very analogous goals to our governor, something we certainly talked about and have over the years. And 2011 has been a solid legislative year for those who've served in the defense of our Commonwealth and our country, and many of the legislators who have led in that effort are here with us today. As the governor mentioned, we're going to see bills signed today ranging from education to business matters to vital records, a particular concern of mine because of my days doing VA benefits cases for the Pro Bono Veterans Consortium, and the gathering of records was one of the mighty headaches in that process. And Virginia is going to do what it can now for the state pieces that you need to move on both with your professional life and going through with the various benefits claims to make that easier to accomplish. Our General Assembly members and our governor have really stepped up this year on behalf of Virginia's veterans and our active duty military members and our Guard members. So Governor, once again, thank you for your visionary leadership on behalf of our veterans and active duty members and our Virginia Guard members. I look forward to working with you and with the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, our new secretary, the almost secretary, to make 2012 even better year for our veterans, our active duty members, and our Guard members. Thank you all very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, General. I'd now like to introduce Senator Walter Stosh, the Leader Emeritus in the Virginia State Senate, served in Henrico County for nearly 3 decades. He's a veteran himself. He introduced Senate Bill 1361 this year, which is the bill I mentioned that will help to make it easier to preserve and maintain professional licenses for spouses when they're stationed overseas. Senator Walter Stosh.
Well, thank you very much, Governor, and good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing us to come and be part of your program today. I started my military career in 1953, served on active duty until 1956, and then had a requisite reserve component after that, and I served in the medical corps, and I've never forgotten all of the experiences that I received. And those of us who are in the in the business that we're in, and that is of making presentations, find ourselves often in the same position I'm in now. Just about everything that needs to be said has been said, but everyone who wants to say it hasn't said it. So I want to add my thank you to all of you who've served so honorably in our military for an extended period of time, and all the things that you've done for us. Even though my military experience was limited to those 36 months, I did find, I was actually at the end of and following the Korean War, I found that there was a common thread that ran through all of our veterans, and that is all gave some gave all. So we had everything from enlisted personnel to officers with various and many different MOSs, as we used to call them at that time. But they all gave something to the freedom that we enjoy. And those who did not come back gave the ultimate sacrifice. So we're pleased. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the Senate of Virginia and its work on your behalf. We're certainly pleased to honor you and to submit to you the work of our 2011 session, which was truly dedicated to making lives better for our veterans and their families. So again, thank you for allowing us to be part of your day.
Well, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the Majority Leader in the Virginia House of Delegates, Delegate Kirk Cox from just down the road here in Colonial Heights. I can tell you I've been in state government now 20 years, and I can tell you that the military has no greater friend in the General Assembly than Kirk Cox. He has constantly been a leader in this area, one, because he loves America and he loves freedom, and secondly, his aide, Bill Flanagan, a retired colonel, is always on top of him. So thank you, Colonel Flanagan. But Kirk introduced several bills this year to continue to improve the staffing at the Department of Veterans Services and to ask DRHRM to have that TRICARE beneficiary package put together, and he's a tremendous leader on this issue. Delegate Kirk Cox.
Well, thank you, Governor. It's great to be here. I sort of laughed, General Hodge. I apologize for walking in the middle of your speech. I'm a school teacher by profession. I thought I had this worked out. I was given a test, and I thought I had the timing perfect, and we had an assembly that ran over, and so your kids are there, you can't leave. So I'm running around during lunch saying, will somebody cover the last 10 minutes of my class? So luckily I got somebody to cover 5. So it's great to be here, and of course I was with the general and his wife just 2 weeks ago. Fort Lee does so many neat things for our community. We had our chamber actually had their big dinner here. As a matter of fact, last summer I was over at the Quartermaster Museum touring that and some of the great school programs that you do. And as a matter of fact, when I walked in, one of my former students was an intern, and she was actually conducting a scavenger hunt with these school kids to show them what was in the Quartermaster Museum, so that was really neat. And of course, I always have to say this, it ties to the Virginia SOLs, which I think you have to say in Virginia. And it's also funny, about 3 years ago, I was in this very ballroom at the annual Quartermaster Foundation dinner to present a commending resolution to the Quartermaster School, noting their impact on the Army in our area. And we were very pleased also, about 5 years ago, I think now, to get $100,000 for the new entrance to the museums, the Women's Museum and the Quartermaster, and hopefully the Ordnance Museum at some point. That will really put that on the map, and I think that will be a tremendous tourist attraction for our area. This year, I was also pleased that we were able to get a budget amendment in that basically I think will do something very important. It will provide train service from Fort Lee to Fort A.P. Hill, which I think not only will make travel safer for the troops, and that's the #1 goal, but also make Virginia roads less congested. And I too want to thank the governor for his goal to make Virginia the most veteran-friendly state. You know, that is sort of what I've been trying to do for the last 10 years. And I say to all you folks here today, whether you served for 3 years or 30 years, we want you to stay in Virginia when you leave service. You have so many talents and skills that we need, so every piece of legislation that we can pass towards that goal is our honor to do. The governor mentioned the TRICARE legislation, which I think is going to be very, very important. It's on a pre-tax basis. It's going to save a lot of our veterans that work in state government by 27%. As a matter of fact, when I was sort of researching that bill, about 9.1% of folks in state government actually are veterans, and I thought that was higher than I guess I even thought. Another one the governor mentioned is veterans claims agents, and that's sort of where the rubber hits the road. This bill basically says for every 27 veterans, we're going to have at least one claim agent. And that's absolutely crucial because you've worked hard for those benefits. We want to make sure that you get those. And anyone, I think, as several people have alluded to, it's try to get those benefits is very, very difficult. So I think that bill is very, very important. And I want to highlight one last one, and I think this shows the leadership of this governor. You know, a lot of people forget we closed the $4 billion deficit, which he reminds me all the time, last year. And Virginia is really in very good physical shape. And we've been on a waiting list to get 40 more beds for the Sitter Barfoot Veterans Care Center. If you've never been there up at McGuire's, it's an incredible facility. We've been on that waiting list now for 5 years. And frankly, this year I didn't think our number would come up, and it did. And one of the reasons our number came up was other states couldn't fund their share. And so when it came up, we were ready. The state was ready to kick the $3 million of state funds in to match the federal funds, and now we're going to get that 40-bed addition. And so good fiscal policy a lot of times leads to very good legislation. So let me close with saying once again to thank the governor for his leadership and the honor of being here today, and thank all of you for your service.
Our final speaker is Paul Galante, the Commissioner of the Department of Veterans Services. I couldn't have found a finer person to lead that department when I became governor than Paul Galante. He is a distinguished veteran, having spent several years in Vietnam, in fact 8.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton as a prisoner of war. Came back and decided to make a difference in Virginia, and he and his wife Phyllis have been tremendous advocates for veterans. He and his wife both just had the Paul and Phyllis Galante wing at the Virginia War Memorial named in their honor because of their tremendous example and their tremendous leadership. And he's doing tremendous work now to support the veterans of our state. So, Commissioner Galante.
I really don't need notes for this. This is such an incredible group, all put out here in front. I've been in this room about 6 times, to Virginia State ROTC graduation, to high school graduations. Fort Lee is just an incredible facility. And it's the most fun, of course, was the Marine birthday ball they had in here. It's probably the noisiest this club has ever been. I'd like to, just a couple of things, thanks. The gentleman down there on the far left, the legislators who gave us what I think is the best year we've ever had in the history of Virginia in the legislature. And so, gentlemen, I don't see any ladies down there. We have some of them too. Thank you for, number one, for doing that, and thanks for being here. And you know how much we need you. A lot of the folks in this room don't realize just how hard it is to do what you all have to do. And I understand it's pretty bad pay also. I would like to, and the governor mentioned the education center at the War Memorial, named after my wife and me. And on there in concrete is something I said once, and it wasn't flip, but it was the tail end of a documentary about the Vietnam War called Return with Honor. And it was a propaganda film, and some of the Air Force guys in here. It was shot by the class of 1985 from the Air Force Academy. Boeing, wanting a lot of money for its bombers, kicked in a lot of money for it. It was a big propaganda thing, but I got the last word in that movie, and the producers had asked me, what 3 things did you learn? And I said, well, I learned a lot more. I was there for a long time. I learned a lot more than 3 things. I said, we need 3 things. And so I mentioned I wasn't as tough as I thought I was, that's one. No matter how tough I thought I had it, somebody else always had it worse. That's a very valuable lesson to know. That was the second thing I learned. And the last one I closed it down with is now inscribed in the War Memorial that there's no such thing as a bad day when there's a doorknob on the inside. Now, I have never paraphrased myself before, but on this occasion, Governor, with this wonderful year we've had in the legislature and having you as a governor, I'd like to paraphrase that a little bit and say there's no such thing as a bad day in Virginia when you have an Army Lieutenant Colonel for governor. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you all for coming, and I'm going to sign these bills here in just a minute, but I do want to again thank all of our legislators, because no matter how many good ideas we all have, it takes tremendous leadership in a very short period of time, 45 days this year, to be able to get things done. Just show you how tough it is in the legislature. That's a picture of the legislative session right up there, and trying to get some bills passed, and it's not always easy. But I want to close by thanking the veterans especially, and we'll start where or finish where we started, and that is the debt of gratitude that we owe you for your steadfast leadership, your sacrifice, and your service for the cause of freedom is immeasurable, and that's why we're here today, and that's why we're signing these bills. So thanks, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, please remain seated as the sponsoring legislators take their place behind Governor McDonnell and other designated personnel observe the sign. Soldiers and veterans on the risers, please stand. We want to make sure that all of you have an opportunity to see this historic legislation being signed into law. Media at this time, feel free to move in front to take better advantage of the photo opportunities.
Well, as you can see, we have a significant stack, 23 major pieces of legislation that these ladies and gentlemen behind us have been responsible for, and I'm pleased to sign it. We get to sign it showing how frugal we are in Virginia with a pen that's guaranteed to write 2 words. That's all the ink it's got in it. So I'm going to use these pens and give them to the legislators that are responsible for them. Senator Northam had Senate Bill 959, which provides that one free copy of the vital record for eligibility for veterans benefits. And he is not here. Have my lawyer keep track of the documents. HB 1719, Delegate Massey, also a duplicate bill that does the same thing. Senate Bill 892, Senator Wampler permits the Department of Human Resource Management to offer the TRICARE supplemental coverage benefits. HB 1761, Delegate Cox, that you heard from earlier, also with the TRICARE supplemental coverage. Senate Bill 1361, Senator Stobbs extends that expiration date for licenses and certifications for the spouses of overseas service members. House Bill 1862, Delegate John Cosgrove from Chesapeake, extends the expiration date for those licenses for those spouses of service members stationed overseas. And another delegate's got numerous installations and service members and spouses in this district. House Bill 1861, Delegate Rich Anderson, United States Air Force colonel retired from Prince William County, has a bill to waive the 1-year residency requirement for veterans in order to receive that in-state tuition. Rich, you're saving people a lot of money. Senate Bill 824, Senator Edwards, also the bill to waive the 1-year residency requirement for tuition. Senate Bill 968, Senator Mamie Locke, exempts the Department of Veterans Services facilities from that certificate of public need. House Bill 1697, Delegate Clay Athey, also a companion bill. Senate Bill 958, Senator John Miller from Newport News, and also with a companion bill that removes the requirement of the Department of Veterans Services. Yes, for the Veterans Care Centers, okay. Also a district with a number of men and women that serve Langley and the Norfolk neighborhoods. House Bill 166 that was co-papered by Delegate Cole and Delegate Watts removes the requirement for the Department of Veterans Services Commissioner to establish certain bureaucratic committees to make things look a little better. Senate Bill 1296, Senator Frank Ruff, who is with us today from Mecklenburg County, creates a Freedom of Information Act exemption for commissions dealing with the prevention, enclosure, and realignment of federal security installations to make it easier to get things done. Everything being in the press. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Senator Ruff. And House Bill 2041, again, Delegate Rich Anderson with a companion bill. As usual, just the second most popular person in my own house. House Bill 1976, Delegate Tag Greason, adds citizen members to the Council on Interstate Compact and Educational Opportunities for Military Children to provide better representation. Senate Bill 1399, Senator Mamie Locke maintains those important staffing ratios at the Department of Veterans Services so that there's one staff person for every certain number of veterans so that we can get things done in a timely fashion. And a companion bill from Majority Leader Kurt Cox, House Bill 1557, does the same thing. Senate Bill 910, Senator Mark Herring, allows deployed military parents to delegate visitation rights to of children to a family member during their deployment. House Bill 1858, again, Delegate Rich Anderson, changes the duration of the temporary voter registration due to military service to make it easier for military members to vote, which is a critically important and a long-term effort here in Virginia to make sure between this and absentee ballots and other things that we have our men and women that are serving abroad being able to vote. And Delegate has quite a collection of pens in this. Senate Bill 866, Senator Vogel and Senator Steve Martin, who is here with us today from Chesterfield County, that has, again, a companion bill that does the same thing, making it easier for military men and women to vote. House Bill 2415, Delegate Armstrong, establishes a discount hunting license for veterans with a 1535, Delegate Don Merritt allows the Board of Medicine and the Board of Nursing to consider military training in lieu of other requirements to obtain some professional licenses. Delegate Merritt is here with us today and has made a long trek from Southside, Virginia to get here, and I appreciate him being here today. Thank you. And finally, told you this, we have House Bill 2279, Delegate Mark Keene from Northern Virginia, that requires the Commissioner also to consider that military experience companion bill with Senator Rice. So, another good step forward for veterans. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your great work.